The truth about Istiwa, that's an attribute of Allah, al-Istiwa. If not for Hadithul Jariyah, our first reference would be their favorite verse. Ar-Rahman wa ala al-arshi istawa. We don't have the meaning of it here. We just transliterated it. They claim this verse is proof that Allah is above his arsh, or that he sits upon it. Let us take a closer look at this noble verse that is clear of their mischief. The word Ar-Rahman is a name of Allah. Al-Bayhaqi explained it as the one with abundant mercy for believers and disbelievers in this life. But his mercy is reserved for the believers in the hereafter. This elaboration is better than what they say in many translations, the benevolent. They say Ar-Rahman means the benevolent. So Ar-Rahman, it means the one who has Rahmah, mercy. And this name, Ar-Rahman, is more emphatic than the name Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahim also means the one who has mercy. But Ar-Rahman has an extra letter in it, so it's more emphatic. Yani Ar-Rahman has 7 letters, as opposed to Ar-Rahim that has 6 letters. But both of those are adjectives that come from the same source. Rahmah, mercy. So the one with more letters has more meaning. The word ala is what in English would be a preposition. Yani it's harf jar. It's a prepositional particle. We can say it's a prepositional particle. I'll leave it as it is though. It has the meaning of ascendancy, as we said already. Isti'la. This particle, ala, it has the meaning of isti'la, ascendancy, going up or over, with whether literal or figurative. Literal ascendancy means to be physically over. You'd say, for example, al-qalamu ala tawila, the pen is ala, on the table, means over it physically, or a figurative one, to be over someone in a figurative sense. Now, an example's not coming to me, but it will come anyway, inshallah ta'ala. Yani, the word on or over in English, like the word ala in Arabic, can mean on or over by a status or by a place. And ala can mean other than that. A lot of prepositions have meaning of place or time or status. So when you say over, before, behind, below, then how are you going to know if it means a place or a time or a status? Context will tell you. Like, if it's about God, for example, then you know it's not about a place or a time. The word al-arsh apparently means the throne, but it is not a chair or some sort of sitting furniture. It is the ceiling of paradise, Saqful Jannah, and the largest of creations. It is carried by 4 enormous and praiseworthy angels. In the dunya now is carried by 4 angels. It rests on their shoulders. And on the day of judgment, 8 angels shall carry that arsh. Very, very, very huge angels carrying that ceiling of paradise. The word istawa, that's the verb. It has many, many meanings. It is a past tense verb, so it's different from the attribute that we just said. This past tense verb that refers to the eternal attribute of Allah called al-istiwa. So you can see a difference in how we spelled it, so you know the difference. Istawa, that's the past tense verb. Istiwa, so it has an I there and has an apostrophe at the end. That's the attribute. That's not a verb there. That's a noun. Istawa is a verb. Istiwa, that's a noun, which is the attribute of God here in this ayah. Either it is sifat that, an attribute of the self, like power and will, or it is sifat fi'l, an attribute of action, like creating life and creating death, meaning creating something. So this attribute of Allah, istiwa, either it's an attribute of His self, so like power is an attribute of the self of God, will is an attribute of the self of God. Those attributes, their opposites are impossible for God. So the opposite of power is weakness. The opposite of will is being forced or being weak. The opposite of hearing is deafness. The opposite of life is death. Those are the attributes of the self of God. Those attributes that they're opposites, meaning the opposite of their meaning, what's contrary to their meaning, that's impossible to attribute to God. That's the meaning of attribute of the self of God. So istiwa could be one of those attributes. It's not one of the 13 attributes, but according to this saying, it's in the same category as those 13 attributes by being an attribute of the self. Or it's sifat fi'l, an attribute of action, like creating life and creating death. So attribute of action for God means like creating life. Then the contrary meaning, creating death, that's also valid. Or expanding the sustenance, that's an action of God. And constricting the sustenance, that's an action of God too, or doing of God. Or making noble, granting honor, that's a doing of God. Or making debased and low and vile, making one dishonorable, that's an action of God. So it's possible that this attribute, istiwa, is one of those attributes, an action, a doing of God. So it's either this one or that one, from this category or that category, this attribute of God. And also, should be clear for you, it's one of the attributes that we could not know it by our mere minds. Our minds alone cannot know that God has an attribute called istiwa. Had it not been for the revelation, we wouldn't have known that. Look, now we haven't translated this yet. The fact that I'm talking about this attribute of Allah with you and I haven't translated it yet, this is the right way. Alhamdulillah. Praise and thanks are due to Allah who granted us the right way. Because these are attributes that their meanings, in the Arabic language, these words could have more than one meaning. So we don't have to know what it means, actually. We don't have to know what it means. But this amount that I'm telling you without translating the word, all of this is correct. It's an attribute of Allah. It's one of those attributes that you can't know it by your mind. You need the revelation to know about it, to confirm it. Either it's an attribute of God's self or it's one of God's actions. Whatever its meaning, it is befitting, and Allah knows its reality. One of its linguistic meanings is jalasa, he sat, which does not befit Allah. For this, some Wahhabis and likeners before them said, Allah sits on his throne. According to them, istiwa means julus, sitting. More meanings will be mentioned as we go, God willing. We have already produced what An-Nawawi mentioned about the two ways of approaching these texts. The first approach is to believe in it without assigning any particular meaning to it, not seeking its specific meaning. Following this method, we simply take the position that it has a befitting meaning that complies with the rules of the religion without the need of breaking the rules of Arabic. And Allah knows the reality of this attribute. We still haven't assigned any meaning yet so far in what we're reading. Praise be to Allah Ta'ala who guided us. It is befitting and becoming and an attribute of perfection, even without us knowing what it means. We merely say Allah is attributed with Istiwa and go no further. This is the general way of the Salaf. And this is what Ash-Shafi'i meant by saying, I believe in what came from Allah according to the meaning that Allah willed. And I believe in what came from the Messenger of Allah according to the meaning that the Messenger of Allah meant. So let the Wahhabis follow it. If they do like what's been mentioned so far, they'll be safe. That means they'll just be saying Allah has an attribute called Istiwa. It's not like the creations. The second approach, investigate the Arabic language and select what is befitting and abandon what is not within a religious context, meaning according to the religious rules. Investigate the Arabic language, that's one aspect, the Arabic language, but also within the confines of the religious rules, like not likening God to the creations. Do not use jalasa, he sat, because that implies that Allah has a body. Do not use i'tadala, he became upright, or he straightened, or became erect. For that would liken Allah to the plants that stand tall on their stalks. As Allah told us about the crops, فَاسْتَوَى عَلَى سُوقِهِ, it istawa, on its stalk, stood upright. Do not use nadija, to ripen or mature, for that would liken Allah to the fruits. Do not use tamma, to become complete, for that would liken Allah to the men who reach the prime of their strength. As Allah told us about Prophet Musa, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, when he reached the prime of his strength, and he istawa, he was complete, we granted him prophethood and knowledge. Do not use istaqarra, to settle, or else he would be similar to the ark, which is a boat, a ship. وَاسْتَوَتْ عَلَى الْجُودِ, it istawa, settled upon Mount Judi. So, those many Wahhabis who claim that Allah istaqarra, settled upon the throne, which is not confirmed from Ibn Abbas as they assert. So that's for your information. I'm going to tell you, Ibn Abbas said istaqarra. It's not confirmed. They have unwittingly compared Allah to a boat that landed upon a mountaintop. When they say istawa ala al-arsh means he settled upon the throne, they don't know that they likened Allah to the boat. Wastawat ala al-judi, that's basically the meaning, that to them means Allah landed. Ibn Taymiyyah's role model, Uthman ibn Sa'id, said that when Allah lands on the arsh, the angels who carry it buckle to their knees under his weight. None of these meanings befits Allah, even though they are linguistically applicable to istawa. A befitting meaning of istawa is qahara, to conquer, subdue, or dominate, because it has the meaning of power. Question: what if a Wahhabi says that conquering is unbefitting because it implies a struggle? Respond: if you think that is a reason to avoid the word conquer, why don't you use the same reasoning to avoid the words rose over? Since that means that he was not the highest. And then he had to overcome that. He had to become the highest, according to you. He wasn't the highest. There was something over him, higher than him. And then he became the highest. Actually, from the instant the Arsh was created, it was subjugated by his power, conquered by him, and dominated. There is no implication of struggle. You just want an excuse to liken Allah to the creations and say he rose up or he sat down. Instead of saying he conquered and he dominated, which is fine because it means he had power over, you'd rather say he sat down or he rose over. And you mean it in a physical sense, rose over. Because rose over is like saying overcame. It's close to saying, if they want to say Allah rose over the Arsh, it's close to saying Allah overcame the Arsh. But that's fine for them. Question: why is the Arsh mentioned specifically if Allah did not rise over it? And since He has power over all things? The answer: to point out the status of the Arsh. That's why. Why did He say in the Quran that He is the Lord of the great Arsh? وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ, while He is the Lord of all things. Also, to point out the status of the Arsh. He didn't say He's the Lord of the great Arsh because He's not the Lord of other things. He's informing us that He conquered or dominated over the Arsh. It's not because He didn't dominate over other things. What is significant about the Arsh in both verses is that it is the largest creation. By Allah informing us that He subdues the largest creation, we knew that He subdues everything else. And this is what many of the Salaf said. Al-Bukhari, so he's from the Salaf. It means anyone he's reporting from is also from the Salaf before him. Al-Bukhari from the Salaf, he narrated about Mujahid, who is from the Salaf. قال مجاهد استوى على العرش. Said Mujahid, Istiwa means ala, dominated over the arsh. As Zajjaj, who is from the Salaf, he used the word istawla in ma'ani al-Quran. وَقَالُوا مَعْنَا اسْتَوَى اسْتَوْلَى. They said that the meaning of istawa is istawla. The Wahhabis hate this word in particular. The word istawla, as opposed to the word qahara, this one triggers them. Al-Tabari, a mujtahid and hafiz of the Salaf, he also mentioned istawla in his tafsir. وَمِنْهَا الْإِحْتِيَازُ وَالْإِسْتِيلَاء. Among its meanings is taking possession, and istila, that's the noun. Istawla is verb, past tense. Istila, subjugation. So one of the meanings of istiwa is istila. One of the meanings of istawa, that's past tense verb, is istawla, that's past tense verb. So then istiwa, that's the noun. According to that, it means istila. That's the noun. Question: what if they say that whenever the verb ala comes with the particle ala, so ala, that's past tense verb. Ala means he went up, he ascended. That's a literal sense, yani. And ala, that's prepositional particle. It means on or over. So looks like the question is about a sentence that would translate as ascended over. Ascended over. He rose up over. So what if they say that whenever the verb ala comes with the particle ala, you can see they're spelled differently too. They're pronounced the same though. Such as in Mujahid's previous statements, when Mujahid said, istawa means ala al-arsh. So what if they say this emphatically means physically rose over and cannot be domination or supremacy? Because that's ala and that's ala. So khalas means physically rose over, nothing more. Another lie. That is refuted by the 91st verse of Surah Al-Mu'minun. وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِذَا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقَ وَلَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. There was never a God with him. Had there been, then every God would have taken what it created. And some of them would have ala, dominated, ala, over others. That's the meaning. Yeah, and it's clear. If you understand Arabic, that's clear. وَلَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. And some of them would have dominated over others. Doesn't mean they would be in a competition to see who can rise higher. One's going higher, the other one's gaining on him, trying to get higher than him, so he's going to go faster. That's what it means for Wahhabi. Also, Al-Akhfash, who is from the Salaf, said, على العرش استوى يقول على ومعنى على قدر. So Al-Akhfash, he's saying, Istawa ala over the Arsh. He is saying by Istawa ala, subjugated or dominated. And the meaning of ala, subjugated, is the ascription of power. Qadar. These Arabic texts here, that's verbatim from those books. So if you have the Arabic, you can get that. You can find that. So just to remind you, some of you studying Arabic or you're going to, all this right here, even if you don't know, you don't understand Arabic, but once you can read enough Arabic, then you'd be able to check these things. Once you can like write the Arabic, put the letters together, and you can look and read, see what you're looking at, then you'd be able to check that for yourself. You could pull up the program, type it in there for yourself. It's going to come right up like one of those research programs. And there are many more references, so do not let them lie to you about the Salaf never saying that istawa means istawla, to conquer or subjugate. And how do they explain his two names, Al-Qahir and Al-Qahhar? The first means that he is the dominator, and the second means that he is very dominating, because Qahhar is more emphatic than Qahir. Like how we said Ar-Rahman is more emphatic than Ar-Rahim. Why do they like the idea of God sitting in a chair or being in the sky more than being all powerful? Because they have an inclination to compare God to the creations. That's why Allah said, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ, concerning those who have perversity in their hearts. Zayg, that's an inclination away from the truth. For these people, that's their liking, enjoying, preferring to liken or compare God to the creations. This is enough to counter a Wahhabi who says that Ibn al-Arabi was asked if he knows about istawa, meaning istawla. They say Ibn al-Arabi was asked if istawa means istawla, subjugation, and he said, I do not know it. So for the Wahhabis, khalas, that's decisive proof. When someone said, I don't know, then they built the judgment on there. That's because they are people who don't like to say, I don't know, when they don't know. They'd rather answer you in ignorance. One scholar's lack of knowledge is not binding on another. The scholars have a rule. Man hafidha hujjatun ala man lam yahfaz. Who memorized has priority over he who has not memorized. Yani anyone who knows something, he has priority over the one who doesn't know it. Yani what if a companion said, the messenger of Allah never did such and such? And then another one said, the messenger of Allah did that. So which one will the scholars take? They'll take from the one who said he did it. Why? Because he knows the other one he didn't know. Question: what if they quote Ibn al-Arabi as saying, the Arabs do not say that a person is stawla ala, conquered something, unless he had an opponent? Respond: this narration contradicts the first because he's confirming that he knows the meaning. So if they gave you this, you tell him, in the other narration, he said he doesn't know what it means, or that it means that. Question: what if they say at first he did not know it, but then he learned it? Respond: it is then also possible that he did not know that they use qahr or istawla without a previous struggle or opponent. What proves that they did indeed use them without the meaning of struggle or an opponent is the very famous verse of Arabic poetry. قد استوى بشر على العراق من غير سيف ودم مهراق. Bishr istawa, conquered Iraq without a sword nor any blood spill. Or we could say, we want to keep the word over. Bishr istawa, dominated over Iraq. Istawa, over. Istawa ala, Bishr Istawa dominated over Iraq without a sword nor any blood spill. Question. What if they say that the author for this line of poetry is unknown? So they're trying to debunk your proof. Respond, as Zabidi and Ibn Kathir, whom they consider an authority, Ibn Kathir, they have confirmed him to be Al-Akhtal, the Christian Arab poet. But even if he were unknown, anyone who studied Arabic properly knows that there are many lines of poetry used as references in the Arabic language without their authors being known. The condition is that they are confirmed to be from the period of those whose speech is used as proof in the Arabic language. Yani those old Arabs, like at the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and before, they had lines of poetry and proverbs that they used to circulate. So it's not a case that they have to know exactly who said it. As long as it's confirmed to be from the time of those whose Arabic was evidence in the language, then that's sufficient. Question. What if they say that since he was a Christian, his speech is unreliable? Respond. Many lines of poetry said by the idol worshippers were quoted by Ibn Abbas when he would interpret verses of the Quran. It is not a condition for the poet to be a Muslim. The condition is that he be from the period of those whose speech is used as proof in the language. He could be a mushrik pagan. It's possible. Doesn't have to be a Muslim. And what further proves that dominated or subjugated is the meaning of istawa are the fourth and sixth verses of Surah Taha, those before and after the fifth verse in question. Yani, the one we're talking about is the fifth ayah of Taha. As you will see repetitively in this book, some scholars said that every mutashabih verse has something in its vicinity that clarifies its meaning. So here's a case. تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى الرحمن على العرش استوى له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى. As revelation from who created the earth and the high skies. Ar-Rahman istawa over the arsh. To him belongs what is in the heavens and what is in the earth and what is between them and what is beneath the soil. So that's general meaning of what's going on around this ayah. These are three verses. So the first of these three means that Allah is the Khaliq, creator of the earth and the heavens. The third of them means that Allah is the Malik, the owner of what is in the heavens and what is in the earth and all that is between them. So that's a premise. Being the most eloquent speech, the Quran's verses must have conformity and harmony, not randomness and incoherence. Yeah, the Quran's not all over the place. One ayah says something, the next ayah is completely somewhere else. The context makes it more likely that the second of these three, the verse of Istiwa, means that Allah is the Qahir, the subduer of the Arsh, not the Jalis or the Qa'id, not the sitter or squatter upon the Arsh. It fits better. تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى, as revelation from who created earth and the high skies. So he's Khaliq, creator. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. Ar-Rahman istawa over the arsh. So does that mean dominator, subjugator, conqueror over? Or means sitting on? Squatting on? Well, what's the next ayah? له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. To him belongs what is in the heavens and what is in the earth, etc. So it means he's Malik, owner. So the fourth ayah means he's Khaliq. Sixth ayah means he's Malik. So fifth ayah is going to mean he's jealous, sitting, or it's going to mean he's Qahir, conqueror, subduer, dominator. It's going to mean, according to that, conqueror. That one fits better. So just like that, how we explain this here, using the context of the previous and subsequent ayahs. Similar as we're going to say about the hadith that we already quoted, and it's going to come back. The hadith, أنت الأول فليس قبلك شيء. You are the first, so there's nothing before you. وأنت الآخر فليس بعدك شيء. And you are, this is very literal translation, and you are the last, and there's nothing after you. وأنت الظاهر فليس فوقك شيء. And you are the apparent, and there's nothing over you. وأنت الباطن فليس دونك شيء. And you are the hidden, and there's nothing below you. So that's literal translation only. But you can see how this hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam puts opposites together. Then we're going to see how the Wahhabis attempt to explain this hadith. What they're going to do, they're going to disrupt that flow and then try to explain that hadith with a disrupted flow in there. That disruption in the meaning, that's going to be the indication in itself that they misinterpreted the hadith because they ruined the flow of it. Makes it unlikely that that's what it means. Question: what about all the quotes they produce from major scholars saying that they believe that Allah rose over the throne? Do not be fooled by the misquoted translations produced by Wahhabis. They bring mistranslated quotes from the Imams about this issue, claiming that they said, "We believe that Allah rose above his arsh," while truly they only said, "We believe in Istiwa." Or they said, "We believe that Istawa ala al-arsh." They didn't say, "We believe Allah rose over the throne." They did not say, "We believe that Istawa means that Allah rose above his arsh." Nor did they say, "We believe that Istawa means that Allah sat." They said, Istawa without a how, not he sat without a how. They said, the meaning of Istawa is not like what is imagined, and not, it is impossible to say how Allah mounted the arsh. For that reason, if a Wahhabi brings such a mistranslation, attributing it to a reliable scholar, tell him, do not bring your translation of what a scholar said when he used a word that can have 15 meanings. Bring the explicit evidence that those scholars said istawa means rose above or sat for Allah. In other words, tell him to bring the proof that those scholars assigned a particular definition to istawa over another, and do not accept a simple translation that is, after all, by a Wahhabi. Not to mention that their norm is to not give you the Arabic quote in their English books. Yani, they don't give you the actual Arabic text. That's their norm. Unless it is a verse from the Quran with their translation. An ayah from the Quran, they'll give you the Arabic. They might give you the Arabic of a hadith with their translation. Maybe. But rarely, almost never, do they give the Arabic text of a scholarly quote. They are confident that their followers will not check. Unless by the time they know enough Arabic to do so, they are fully indoctrinated and committed to support the lies and misconceptions. Take, for example, how they frequently misquote Abu Hanifa. نقر بأن الله استوى على العرش. We confess that Allah rose over the throne. That's what they would say. That's how they'd say it. What happened to the rest of the statement in Al-Wasiyyah? من غير أن يكون له حاجة إليه, without there being for him any need of it, without him having any need for it. واستقرار عليه, and without any dwelling over it. وهو الحافظ للعرش وغير العرش, and he is the preserver of the arsh and other than the arsh. That's one of the meanings of istawa, hafiz. Yani, hafizah. One of the meanings of istawa is hafizah, to preserve. So Abu Hanifa says, وَهُوَ الْحَافِظُ لِلْعَرْشِ, and he is the preserver of the arsh, وَغَيْرِ الْعَرْشِ, and other than the arsh. ولو كان محتاجا لما قدر على إيجاد العالم وتدبيره كالمخلوق. Had he been in need, he would not have had the power to create the world and manage it. Like the creation doesn't have the power to create the world and manage it. ولو كان محتاجا إلى الجلوس والقرار فقبل خلق العرش أين كان الله تعالى. And had he been needy of sitting and dwelling, then before creating the arsh, where was Allah? Exalted is he. تعالى الله عن ذلك علوا كبيرا. Exalted is Allah from that highly and greatly. All of that, they're not going to give you that part. They're just going to give you this part. نقر بأن الله استوى على العرش. They're not going to give you the Arabic. Then they're going to say, Abu Hanifa said, we confess that Allah rose over the throne. So it is clear that Abu Hanifa was truly merely saying, we confess that Allah has istiwa over the arsh. If the Wahhabi brings some statements from some of the old reliable scholars, like Mujahid, the student of Ibn Abbas, and Al-Farra, claiming that those scholars said it means rose above, by using such words as irtafa'a or ala, then know that even those words still can have the meaning of highness and status and majesty, not only highness and place. And because highness has two meanings, we're going to say now. That is assuming that the narrations are authentic. Assuming that it's authentic, do not be shaken by this, because it is known that there are two types of highness. A physical highness, which is impossible to be an attribute of Allah, and a majestic, which is necessary. Goes back to what I was saying to you about prepositions. They so frequently have the meaning of time, place, and status. So when you say high, it can mean place or status. And same thing when you say low, could mean place or status. Before, place or status. Ahead, behind, even close could mean place or status. Far could mean place or status. For Wahhabi, he's so blind. None of that registers for him. It only means place, all of it. Above, below, everything, close, far, it all means place. That's it. Thus, had they used words that attribute highness to Allah, had these been true reports that these scholars are saying that Allah irtafa'a or something like that, that in itself is not evidence that Allah is in a place. For one thing, because it's not an ayah from the Quran, it's not a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So it's not a proof that Allah is in a place. And it's not a proof that those scholars believed that Allah was in a place, even if that's authentic, because it can still mean status. It is just praise for Allah. Like Abu Hanifa said. Like Abu Hanifa said concerning the hadith of the slave girl. Remember what Abu Hanifa said about the hadith of the slave girl? He said, Allah Ta'ala is called upon using words of highness, not lowness. Because highness has the meaning of greatness. And lowness doesn't have any meaning of greatness when we talk about status. When you use highness and lowness with the meanings of status, then lowness doesn't work for Allah. Furthermore, had they intended by those expressions that Allah exists in a physical location, they would be rejected because they're not prophets. They would be rejected by virtue of the definitive evidence. Indeed, the truth is not known by the men are known by the truth. It could mean that he is the hafiz of the arsh. Istawa ala al-arsh could mean that he is the hafiz, preserver of the arsh, like Abu Hanifa said. Because one of the meanings of istawa is hafizullah, to preserve or protect. And one of Allah's names is al-hafiz. One of Allah's names is al-hafiz, the preserver or protector. Like this, if we go this way, it means that Allah keeps the Arsh high above paradise. If not for Allah's preservation of the Arsh, it would fall and destroy what is beneath it. This is still close to the first explanation of dominance and subjugation, for it is still Allah's ascription of power. Assigning a particular meaning is the way of the Khalaf, the scholars after the Salaf. Lots of deviation emerged in the later generations, as well as weakness in the pure Arabic. So there was a necessity to specify meanings for those verses, especially for the sake of the layman. Okay, we'll stop there. Any question?